My heart is literally beating like 900,000 miles a second. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ideology. I am Kyle Curtis, and I thought Casey was going to be with us tonight, but apparently she is busy and has sent it looks like Jesus Christ in her stead. So welcome, Jesus.
What's up, Christians? How y'all doing?
Kyle?
Oh, fuck. God damn it. You can't stir me like that, bitch.
Sorry.
Whatever y'all were doing before the show, it shows because he's got some hair going on there. That's either been pulled or heavily slept on.
Listen. Oh, fuck my hair.
Sorry.
Listen, I do not kiss nor fuck and tell. You understand me?
I got it. Listen. I don't want any trouble, right? No trouble.
All right, go with me inside you.
What the fuck, Jesus? Let's move on. Let's introduce our guest. How about it?
Yes, it's only been like 2 minutes. That's a good starting point. Yes, please introduce our lovely guest for us, Casey.
Oh, hey, we've got V here who has a channel on YouTube. I'm going to let you tell people about it, but we're going to be talking about issues with Islam. And V, why don't you tell us about your channel, where we can find you, and a little bit about how you got into Islam.
Hello, my name is V. Well, my name isn't actually V. That's just the first letter of my name. But yeah, that's just, you can call me V. So my channel is called Theomacy. That's a classicist term that means various things because Greek is such a flexible language, but it's usually used to mean associated with myths about ancient gods being taken on by humans, like Sisyphus, for example. So it literally kind of means battling the gods. But since in today's terms we say that theos in Greek words means theism, I use it to mean battling theism. It's kind of my attempt at new vocabulary, new word for counter apologetics. I do funny videos.
Apologia.
Yeah.
Like apologia.
Yeah. Yeah, just like how apologists use that Greek word to say, oh, this is our apologetics from apologia. I've got Theomacy from Theomakos. So yeah. It's I just do funny videos. I started my channel out of frustration because a YouTuber called the 1 Minute Apologist blocked his comment section. I ended up starting a channel and to respond to him because my essays turned into scripts, which turned into skits, which turned into videos. And then the next thing you know, I make a bunch of friends on YouTube and it's a lot of fun. And I like it. And now, as for the topic of the day, Islam. Islam is something that caught my interest a while back when I entered the skeptic community, because it's a religion that I don't hear much about. Usually I hear a lot from ex-Jews and ex-Christians and stuff like that, and no one ever talks about the issues with Islam. It's one of those religions that a lot of people don't want to touch because, they're ignorant of the language.
Or they want to keep their head.
Yeah, and they want to keep their head. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
But yeah, I found it very fascinating, especially when I learned that, this was, I kept hearing, there are 13 nations in this world that still execute atheists. And I was like, which ones? And all of them are majority Muslim. And then I, of course, learned more about it. And then I ended up running into the work of a famous activist named Avijit Roy. He was a part of our community, but we lost him in 2015. He's from Bangladesh. He was a secular atheist activist. He ran the website for Bengali and South Asian free thinkers called Muktomona, Muktomona, Muktomona.
I need you to get a little bit closer, V. You're starting to.
Yeah, so he and his wife were attacked by Islamic extremists, and he was murdered. His wife, Rafida Ahmed Bonya, she made it, and she currently lives in Texas, if I'm correct. I think that was the last I heard about her. She still does activism. Avijit, I read some of his work. One thing that caught my attention especially was these 2 articles he wrote of the 10 Quranic science miracles debunked. And I'd like to start with his 3 objections if I can. Well, actually, let's
before we start with the conversation, let's take a step back so that I can run through what's coming up for next week, and then we'll dive right in. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So let's flip on the screen, and Casey and I have a really big show coming up next week with someone who doesn't believe that viruses exist. So,
oh yeah, that's going to be so fun. A
No, you're
viralist and Dr. Peachy. Y'all, some of you probably know Peachy Keen. She is an immunologist. We're going to have her with him.
you know, I tried saying that last night, and I tried like 4 times to say that, and I could not get it out.
Immunologist?
Yes, it just was not coming out. But Monday, Dr. Amisha Griffith, many of you remember her. She was a hit. She'll be back with us Monday. We're going to be talking about the secret police during the Cold War. It's kind of like a continuation of the talk that we had the last time she was here at 8 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday, Rick Efrack is going to be back with us. He has been waiting for the past 2 times that he's been here. He's been hinting that he wants to talk about Alexander the Great. So he finally gets to talk about his favorite subject on Tuesday. That's going to be also at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then on Wednesday, the day that I'm looking forward to, the day that I will not have any brain cells left, any weed left, any alcohol left, all will be gone and spent on the antiviral list. So get ready, Casey.
Yeah, I know that when Kyle messaged me about this guy, I was like, this is not a real person. Like, this is totally not a real thing. And he's like, oh no, I assure you it is. And so I was like, okay, I know an immunologist.
Yes, that would go over so much better than I think us sitting here going, yeah, but the little squiggly thing hooks to the round thing.
There's no way. I mean, I don't, not my field. And even though I could probably do some research, it's not going to be enough. Like, Peachy's going to be great.
I kind of feel like we don't owe anybody that believes that viruses don't exist any research. You know what I mean? Like, I should just be able to come up and say, well, I don't believe that your shirt exists.
Kyle, are you trying to get my shirt off on screen? That's not
I would never. How dare you? Excuse me.
You're like, I'm not interested in what's under there anyway.
Now, V. Okay, so that's going to be next Wednesday. But to stem off that just for a second, when Casey said that there's no way that can be real, that's a understandable response. I would have said the same thing. However, after I announced that he was coming on, in the comment section under that video, there have been at least 4 people to say that I was too quick to judge. No one's ever actually seen a virus. It's all computer animated theory. And I mean, this is a thing. This is a sad little thing, but nonetheless, it is a thing. So
shocking.
Okay, Thursday, should drugs be decriminalized? Bring your coke, bring your marijuana. Let's do lines and see what conclusion we come to.
Kyle, no.
I'm kidding. Kyle. That was obviously sarcasm. Jeranism, that was sarcasm. Please don't come with your cocaine. All right, let's go to Friday. This is going to be a big show. He is running for president in 2020. I think that from what I've been researching, he has probably the best shot from the libertarian side of it. His campaign's picking up steam. So that's going to be Adam Kokesh at 8 p.m. Eastern on Friday. And then finally, another thing with Casey and I that we're going to see how it plays out. Vadim and Bunty King.
Yes, Vadim Newquist, Creationist Cat, and Bunty King.
I spoke too soon. We forgot about King James. How dare we do that?
Oh, shit. Sorry, King James.
On Monday, Dr. Griffith's husband, actually.
Look at V.
That's pretty good. So Dr. Griffith's husband actually does documentaries, historical documentaries. And he recently did one on King James and the KJV version of the Bible that is fascinating. So if you look at your screen, it's going to be called How King James KJV the Bible. And we were going to do it in King James version, but we decided to do it in the NSV, the NonSequitur version instead. Can I get a rim shot?
Did you just say, can I get a rim shot?
Yeah.
This what?
But
That's a rim
Oh.
shot. Your mind's in the gutter.
Maybe so.
Your mind's in the gutter. Professor Stick. Okay, and so then we get to Bunty King and Vadim. So that will be on Thursday, excuse me, at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, Thursday.
Cool. A lot of cool stuff coming up.
Yeah.
All right. If you, as many of you will probably remember from last week, Casey and I embarked on a rather deep subject, one that affects us all, and that would be the subject of dicks. And we decided that the Dick News Network would be a thing, and we promised you that we would bring you stories about dicks. No, hold on. Don't give yourself away yet, Casey. Because I'm about to save it.
Okay.
We were going to do this. We were going to do stories on dicks, but we decided that there is no need because Wednesday night in the debate between Red's Rhetoric and Sean Hufford, the Limitless Channel and Awake Souls, there were plenty of dicks for you to see there. So if you are missing your dick news now, go to Wednesday's show and you'll be just fine.
Yeah.
See, Casey, I could have said that and nobody would have ever known we forgot to pull.
I'm getting my master's degree in systems engineering for those of you who don't know, and I am taking a summer class and my final is this weekend. So today, well, the last few days I've been like really super preparing for my exam, and I didn't research. I forgot about Daily Dick News, and I forgot about being Poppy Cock Block. What am I, Poppy?
I have it written down somewhere. we'll be better next time. We promise.
We'll be prepared. We'll have our dick news ready. Yeah.
Right.
What is your relationship with your mothers?
He's bringing out Steve McRae again. Hey, Steve. All right, so let's go ahead and try to. I guess I'm really not sure of the best segue. Usually, I have a really clever way to kind of throw it over to you, and it makes it even weirder that I'm throwing it over to a doll version of Steve McRae. But we can do that. Here to talk about Islam is V and doll Steve McRae.
Yeah.
AKA Sigmund.
Stuffed McRae. Oh, that sounds bad.
That's good.
Let me. Okay, so I guess we should just start with an overview of what Islam is. Islam was a religion started in the 7th century by an Arab merchant by the name of Muhammad. As far as his narrative is concerned, we actually don't know much about him. All that we do know is the narratives from the hadiths, which come from a string of narratives called Isnad. And some of those narratives of hadith are considered unreliable or very reliable. The most reliable are called sahih, which are authentic. And so we don't know a lot about, aside from those supposedly authentic hadiths, we really don't know much about the beginnings of Islam. It's shrouded in mystery because, of course, right after its rise and its unification of the Arabs and all of that, they ended up conquering much of the known world in a century and ended up taking over land from Spain to North Africa to all of Persia, all the way to northern India.
I don't mean to interrupt you real quick, but get right up on that microphone so we can hear you a little bit.
Yeah, okay. So Islam is a religion with a history. It's as Ayaan Hirsi Ali said it best. She said, no monotheistic religion could be a religion of peace. And of course, the history of Islam is that, like its predecessor, when Christianity gained political power, it eliminated religious freedom. It took away rights from pagans to practice their religion, the polytheists. And before that, of course, was Judaism, which was, of course, a very violent religion. They couldn't take the fact that foreigners were in charge of their land. Anyone from the Persians to the Romans to the Hellenizers, they were mad about that all the time. And of course, the Tanakh is full of stories about war. Everything from the book of Joshua to the stories of Moses to the stories of David, the stories of Solomon. So obviously, Islam is an ostensibly Abrahamic religion. It has all the familiar characters, and the reason that people don't know that it's an Abrahamic religion is, of course, because all the data, like all the stories, are in Arabic. But of course, there are plenty of English translations that show that, it's got the familiar characters. It's got Abraham, Ibrahim. It's got Moses, who's called Musa in Arabic. It's got David, Dawood, Solomon, Sulaiman. It's got Jesus, Isa is his name. His whole name in Islam is, he's either called the Christ, the Messiah, or Al-Masih, or he's called the son of Mary, Ibn Maryam. So Isa ibn Maryam is what he's called in Arabic.
So can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Because this is something that a lot of people don't, a lot of Christians don't admit, and I don't know how really Muslims feel about it, but the Abrahamic God is the same God for Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So in Islam, is God the same God? Like, do they consider it to be the same God from Christianity and Judaism?
Oh, girl, you coming out swinging tonight, aren't you?
Yes, they do. So if you get an Arabic translation of the Tanakh or the New Testament, they always refer to God or Hashem or Elohim in those translations as Allah. Allah literally means al. It's a contracted word that comes from the Greek word, the Arabic word al, which means the, and ilah, which means a God. So together it's Allah, the God. It's trying to be an ostensibly monotheistic religion.
But like Allah and Yahweh are the same.
Yes, they are the same.
Yeah.
And of course, the ultimate proof of this is the fact that in many of the Islamic narratives, Islam keeps bringing itself back to Judaism and Christianity. Every time it tries to justify itself, there's always these narratives of, oh, this Christian said, oh, this is the religion of my God. These Jews, oh, these are the tenets of our prophets. So obviously it's an ostensibly Abrahamic religion. And of course, right. Islam justifies itself by saying that it's a continuation of the traditions of Moses and David and Jesus, and they even say that they believe that the Jews were given the Tawrat, which is the Arabic word for Torah, from the prophet Musa, who was Moses. But of course, like I said, a lot of people don't know this because they tell the story in Arabic with Arabic names. But no, when they say Allah gave the Tawrat to the Jews, they mean God gave the Torah to Jews.
So this is great for people who look at the Old Testament and say, you know what? I really wish that whole Moses period hadn't have ended.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, then they also believe that the Psalms are the scriptures given to King David. But of course, they don't say it like that. They say Allah gave the Zabur to Dawood. But of course, that translated is God gave the Psalms to David. And of course, then there's Jesus. They say Allah gave the Injil to Isa. But of course, it's God gave the gospel to Jesus. And of course, Muhammad is finally the one saying, and Allah is giving me the Quran.
Wouldn't it be great if somebody would do a spin-off parody of Game of Thrones, but let the throne be like the one in heaven, and you have like Jesus and Muhammad and all the other gods trying to get that one throne?
Yeah.
Muhammad would be like Cersei Lannister. You know that.
Yes. His character is very controversial. Obviously, he is a 7th century man of his era. I mean, that's all I can say about him. By modern standards, he is a dictator, a monster. In a lot of ways, I've compared him to Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan had some interesting narratives about him. He unified his people. He started a great empire, but a lot of people died in the wake of that. Muhammad basically did the same thing. He unified his people. He brought them together under one religion, under one identity. He conquered much of them. His successors conquered much of the known world. The only significant difference that makes Muhammad, I'd say, worse than Genghis Khan is the fact that Genghis Khan's empires, his empire and his successors, allowed for religious freedom. Muhammad, his legacy didn't do that much. Of course, Muslims gave some privileges to Christians and Jews under the pretense that they'd, of course, pay a tax called jizya, which is the tax given to the people of the book. But polytheists, people of non-Abrahamic religions, they were done for.
So is Muhammad and Muhammad's teaching the reason why Islam is so much more adheres more to the strict religious ideology than the other Abrahamic religions, because a lot of people will say, you know, things like, well, you know,
So
they'll say like, well, ISIS or, you know, Islamic terrorists, they don't follow the Quran. But if you read it, they do, and they follow it more strictly. Like if a Christian were to follow the Bible as it's written, they would be considered just as bad, I think.
There'd be no Kyle.
Yeah, so if I can,
Yeah.
so I agree. When it comes to, of course, we're talking about religion here, and of course, religious people tackle it with their own moral conscience, which is why the vast majority of Muslims don't care about their religion that much. They, of course, observe it; it's part of their culture, but they care about taking photos on Instagram, eating sandwiches, getting educated. I've met Muslims, and every single Muslim I've ever met has been a wonderful person. And when they talk to me about their religion, they always tell me, oh, it's about love. And when they talk about hadiths, they talk about, oh, you know, Muhammad said, it is better to cut off the garment of your sleeve, the sleeve of your garment, than to wake up the cat that's sleeping on it. You know, they have a very liberal attitude about it.
Trade Sharia for Insta. I think that could be a campaign.
So,
Trade Sharia for Insta.
But yeah, to get back to what you were saying, the thing is, Muhammad, he said that he was the last prophet. He said basically, I am the last person God is ever going to talk to. God is only going to talk to me. I'm the last person he's going to talk to on this earth. And after me, everyone else that says they're talking to God is lying. They're being possessed by jinn. They're being influenced by the shaitan, Satan. And he, of course, said, you know, the Quran is God's last say on the matter of humanity.
How convenient. And who would buy into that? Who would say, you know what? Yeah, you're right. He probably did say that. God probably did tell Muhammad he was the last person that was ever going to hear this.
Yeah, so that's the reason why Islam has its rigidity. It has its rigidity in the sense of its internal consistency, because, you know, unlike the Bible, which is like 66 books written by several different authors in vastly different periods of time, which are full of contradictions.
Is it also possible that part of the reason why Islam is so rigid in their practice, or, you know, how they deal with that, is because it's Islam is 600 years younger than Christianity. So if you go back into the history of Christianity 600 years, you're going to see more violence. You're going to see more adherence to things in the Bible that you would not see now. So is it possible that in time the same exact thing would happen with Islam?
Scientology.
Oh, so you're basically saying how Judaism and Christianity are far older, and they've matured and capitulated to the moral conscience of humans in general. As in, you know, like you get Christians who say, I believe in Christ, but of course I'm liberal. I believe in equal rights, free speech, all that. Even though,
well, yeah, like they don't stone people anymore. Like divorce is legal. Like there's a lot of things that like have become more relaxed over time. They don't, you know, burn witches anymore.
So that's of course I'd say that's more.
That's what's wrong with America.
I say that's more a hypothesis. Maybe it's very likely a good hypothesis to consider, because of course Islam is a young religion, but you know, the issues, I would say, aren't so much how young it is. It's what it says.
V, we need to break in for real quick, so that they've just sent me a message. Where is your mic? Are you using like a headset?
No, I'm using my computer mic.
Okay, can you try to get it a little? People are having a hard time hearing you. It's low.
Is this better?
Yes, that's better.
Okay, I'll just go.
Just get creepily close to the camera. It'll be all right.
Yeah, just come in for your close up. It's fine.
Get that glamour shot photo. There you go. See, look, now this I would like to listen to Islam now. See, I'm instantly. But let me ask you this before you get going into the direction that you're going to go, just because I'm curious myself. Now, we say all the time that the Bible is full of stories that are just outrageous and fantastical. But there is a story in the Quran that I think takes the cake for that award, and that is the story of the winged horse cleaving the moon in half and coming back down. Right? Now you probably know more than I do. So what's the summary of that story? What was the purpose of cutting the moon in half? And
well, if I'm correct, the narrative was basically there were doubters, and so Muhammad had that done to prove that he wasn't making this up. It was his miracle.
Well, I must say that is a way to do it.
But there are tons of ridiculous stories like that. There's the story of him flying to Jerusalem on the horse. There's the story of him being saved by a spider. And what happened was there were polytheists from Makkah trying to kill him, and he hid in a cave. And there was a spider that was sent, if I'm correct. The spider came, weaved a bunch of webs around the cave to make it look like no one was in there.
Oh boy!
And the guys got there, like, oh, there's a bunch of webs in this cave. No one's in there. Let's go.
Oh boy! Oh boy!
Hold on. Can you guys can we pause for a bit?
Yeah, we can. We can hold it.
Just click the pause button, David.
Oh, hold on. Who do we got? We can be
We can go take your time. We'll take care of it. We'll hold the house down.
I hope that's one of those like police force knocks. Did you hear that? That's not a friendly hey.
No,
knock.
I hope he comes back.
Well, we'll find out.
Oh,
Paul. Hey,
No.
Paul.
I'm not
Paul.
Paul. I'm sorry. I'm not Paul. I am Canadian, but I'm Vice Rhino.
Vice Rhino. For people probably don't know this about Vice Rhino, but we have a kind of a thread group in Twitter where we all just kind of jump on and just talk shit about various topics. And one of the funniest people in that, just for his like one-liners, because he won't come in and have like a full-on conversation with you, but he'll kind of wait for a particular subject to pop up, and then he strikes, like a viper, kind of like Godless Cranium does. Cranium does the same thing. Did I tell you what Godless Cranium told me? Speaking of dick news, I can do this.
What did Godless Cranium say? What did I tell you?
He told me, I made a dig at him, and he said, "You need to shut up before I come over there and give your throat stretch mark."
I am back. I am so sorry.
Wait,
That's
hold
okay.
on a second. What did he say?
He said that I better shut up before he comes over here and gives my throat stretch marks.
I said I'm back. I am so sorry. My family was annoying me.
He did not say that. Hold on a second, V. He said
He did. And you know what? The crazy thing was, I didn't know if I was offended or aroused at that particular time. I
probably a little bit of both.
Probably, definitely.
Yeah.
Most likely.
Sorry.
We were wondering if you were the knock that you were getting was not like a friendly "I'm coming over to visit" knock. It was like
It was probably the J-hose.
yeah, it's like
It was my family forgot their damn my siblings forgot
Oh.
the key.
That's
Let's
okay.
forget, let's forget this and move on.
Well, just so that we can kind of catch up now, we left in the middle of the nonfiction story of Charlotte's Web hiding Muhammad from the evil people after the horse cut the moon in half.
Yes, there's all kinds of crazy narratives like that.
Yeah.
It's just it just boggles the brain, and obviously the obvious answer is because this is a religion.
Yeah.
So
their creation story has to be.
Before we get into that we should probably discuss their attitude towards science in general, which is the direction I was going.
Do we really even have to discuss that? I'm pretty sure we know what their attitude is. I'm being facetious, but go ahead.
Yeah. So obviously, there's a lot of baggage that comes with Islam. You can look at the Pew research on the support for Sharia, which is mind-boggling. And then, of course, there's the fact that there's this myth that the Quran doesn't say kill apostates. But let me just go straight to the verse. I have it open right here. Here we go. Surah 4, verse 89. Which basically says, you can look it up. There are several translations. I have the Moshin Khan translation, which says, they wish that you reject faith as they have rejected faith, and thus you all become equal like one another. So not awliya, protectors or friends from them, till they emigrate in the way of Allah to Muhammad. So, but if they turn back from Islam, take hold of them and kill them wherever you find them. and taken either as protectors or friends or helpers from them.
Well, so Christianity has very similar instructions.
Yes, of course.
It does. In Deuteronomy, in Leviticus, it talks about killing the non-believers, killing the people who basically practice other religions. You have to rid them from you to keep the Israelites pure. So it's similar in that way.
Talks about killing everybody.
Yeah, you have to remember that Judaism itself is kind of a race myth. It's of course saying,
Get that glamour shot in, V.
It's kind of a race myth. So of course Deuteronomy is saying that if you betray the people of Israel, the Israelites, you're committing like blasphemy, and you should die for it. It's death for apostasy isn't unique to Islam, and in a lot of ways, Judaism's instruction to do so is what influenced this verse in chapter 4, verse 89 of the Quran. And also, there's a supporting hadith to it. If you look up the Sahih al-Bukhari hadith collection in book 52, hadith 260, it said, as the Prophet Muhammad said, don't punish anybody with Allah's punishment. No doubt I would have killed them, for the Prophet said, if somebody, a Muslim, discards his religion, kill him. So the Quran and the hadith both have the death penalty for apostasy.
What translation did you say you're reading out of?
So there's a good website. If you're ever interested in looking at the Quran in detail, go to corpus.quran.com, corpus.quran.com.
I'm just wondering if they have like a King James or an Imam James version.
Well, they have translations that kind of sound like that. I mean, if I'm correct, it's the Pickthall translation. That here's the translation here. They long that ye should disbelieve, even as they disbelieve, that ye may upon a level with them. So choose not friends from them till they forsake their homes in the way of Allah. If they turn back to enmity, then take them and kill them wherever ye find them, and choose no friend nor helper from among them. So yeah, the Quran and the Hadith both have death penalty for apostasy.
People read these books for inspiration?
Huh?
Yeah. Well, so there are apologists. There are apologists for Islam, just like there are apologists for Christianity and apologists for all the religions.
Reza Aslan. Reza Aslan.
Okay. Yeah. So that's you're gonna have people trying to explain away the bad and as if it's not there, or sometimes just pretending that it doesn't exist. And when you have conflicting passages in different parts, they pick the one they like the best, that works best for their narrative, and kind of push the other one out. So that's a common thing in all religion. I don't think that Islam is any different in that way.
It bothers me though that when that happens, when they do this, they act as if we're the crazy ones for seeing what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like they give you the look like, how are you not getting this? And you literally point out that one verse says this other verse says this. That makes a contradiction. Therefore, how can the two things be compatible? But yet they look at you like you're the one that's not getting it. And it's so frustrating.
It is.
Yeah.
So let's get into the whole science question. You were wanting to talk about that.
So obviously when it comes to science, there's just an ostensibly large amount of people who reject evolution. Like in Saudi Arabia, for example, there's a text there. You can look this up. It's Teaching Evolution in Muslim States, Iran and Saudi Arabia Compared. Now, Iran is actually a bit more cool with evolution. They teach it, but they omit human evolution in a way. But yeah, the NCSE, the National Center for Science Education, made this article back a while back. It's an article by L.C.K. Burton. And in one of the textbooks from Saudi Arabia, it says, nevertheless, in the West appeared what is called the theory of evolution, which was derived by the Englishman Charles Darwin, who denied Allah's creation of humanity, saying that all living things and humans are from a single origin. We do not need to pursue such a theory because we have in the book of Allah the final say regarding the origin of life, that all living things are Allah's creation. And they, of course, malign evolution. They say in the textbook, due to this theory's deviant character and its contradictions to intuition and reason, there are many Western scientists who stood against it and exposed its fallacies in scientific research and rational inferences, raising raising suspicions against Darwin's theory that it consists of assumptions and hypotheses that have no evidence or proof.
So what is their theory?
Yeah, let's. Before we get into that, there's also some serious news. So, you all heard of Turkey, right? It's considered, Reza Aslan. Everybody knows what Reza Aslan is.
It's also great with cranberry sauce and dressing at Thanksgiving.
Yes, the nation of Turkey on the Anatolian Peninsula is
yes.
It's considered the success story of Islam and secularism cooperating. It was founded by a secularist named Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, who was, of course, he was a secularist who wanted to make sure that there was women's liberty, scientific education. He wanted to restrict religion from politics. He told his military before he died, make sure you keep the state secular. And of course, the nation has just gone to hell with that. He wanted to initiate the separation of mosque and state, but there's an Islamic party running the country. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who is the president of the country right now. I think they call him president. He's basically a demagogue. He, if I'm correct, he said our religion is to find a woman's place, motherhood.
Isn't it unrealistic though to expect that if you're in that part of the world surrounded by all of those other countries that are following this religion, for one country like that to stand out and stay that way?
Yeah, it's something that tons of people people were hoping Turkey would be the success story, and in a lot of ways it was. There were women in charge of the government. There was women's equality. There's a lot of stuff like that. But the religion has ostensibly gained a lot of influence as of recently.
Come a little bit closer. You're starting to fade out. Come a little bit closer.
Yeah. So back in June 22nd, 2017, last year, an article was released you could look it up in Hurriyet Daily News, which is the leading news source for Turkey and the region. It's Hurriyet, if you want to look it up, that the latest draft of Turkey's new national curriculum excludes evolution theory. So Turkey is going to stop teaching evolution.
I'm surprised that they taught. I'm more surprised that they actually taught it than I am that they're.
Well, they taught it because the state of Turkey was founded as a secular state. That religion was supposed to be separate from the government, as well as education. Education would be secular, scientific, based on empirical data. But because of the fact that the state is run by an Islamic party now,
right.
they've decided that they don't want to do that. I mean, there's one man. He's one of the chairs of the Board of Education. His name is Alparslan Durmuş. He said that evolution was debatable, controversial, and too complicated for students. In another article, the deputy PM of Turkey, his name is Numan Kurtulmuş, said in a private broadcast interview with CNN Turk on January 29th of 2017, he said, "Scientifically, the theory of evolution is already an archaic and disproven theory. There is no such rule that this theory must be taught. Perhaps it might be brought to the agenda as one of the theories."
You sure that wasn't Kent Hovind that said that?
Nope, that was a Turkish.
Well, the thing is too, Turkey is also being run by that corrupt Erdogan.
Yeah.
That's not helping at all with any
And
progress over there.
and of course, to make it even more hilarious, you guys aren't going to believe this. There's one person in Turkey who's very happy about this, and that is, we can call him the Muslim Ken Ham. There is a Muslim Ken Ham. His name is Adnan Oktar, aka Harun Yahya. And this guy is weird. He uses the pen name Harun Yahya, and he writes books against evolution.
I wonder how Paul would parry him, because ham and eggs obviously is with Ken Ham, but the Muslim version I wouldn't think could have bacon. So what would that?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with Turkish cuisine, but he's so influential that he actually had his own TV channel called A9TV, and it's creepy. Vice, I believe, a Vice affiliate called I forgot what it was. It was one of the Vice affiliates actually did a short video on it on YouTube. You could look it up, of the Islamic feminist cult that does a big that goes to the A9 TV studio, and he's got these women, this host of women that all look the same. They all look like dolled up, blonde-haired women that look like they've had work done, and he calls them his kittens. And it's to demonstrate that Islam is a feminist religion. And it's very creepy. They all look alike, and occasionally the show plays music and they dance. And by dancing,
that's not feminism.
Yeah, it's very disturbing.
Let's just file that under creepy. But let's tell us what the Islam. I'm interested to hear what the Islam creation story is. I want to compare it to Adam and Eve.
Well, I'm going to get to that in a bit. I just wanted to say just one more thing about Oktar real fast. So Oktar is best known for his book, The Atlas of Creation. And if you want a hilarious criticism of it, just look up Richard Dawkins. Apparently, he reviewed it. The book basically appeals to the layman. It's a beautifully laminated book. You could get a free PDF of it online. And on one page, it shows the image of a fossil. And on the other page, it shows the image of a modern animal. And the point is, look at these two animals. They look these two look exactly the same. There's no such thing as evolution. So this is the kind of layman's. And the first edition of the book was so bad, there was a fishing lure in the image of a fly compared to the fossil of a fly in amber. So, yeah, this is what we're dealing with. But people are eating this up in Turkey. Not all the Turkish people, of course, but it's enough for the state to not want to teach evolution.
Yeah, well, they're run by a religious party. It would make sense that, I mean, like I said, I'm more surprised that they actually at one time taught evolution.
Yeah,
because you never heard of Turkey being like the pinnacle of secular society in the Middle East.
Yeah,
nobody. The Middle East didn't used to be. I mean, even just like 50 years ago, the Middle East wasn't anything like it is now, like at all.
Yeah, after the fall of the Ottoman Empire, there was a lot of experimenting. And of course, Turkey was considered the success story because it was founded on secular principles, but now it's just a mess. So let's get to the Quranic creation story. Now, the Quran isn't like the Bible. It doesn't begin with a creation story. It doesn't begin with the creation story and goes on with the big story. It's several books of recitations, essentially. It's like basically recitations from Muhammad. And occasionally there are verses thrown in that explain some pieces of the creation story. So, the Quranic origin of the universe. In the beginning, in chapter 21, verse 30, it's this sloppy. The verse says, "Have those who disbelieve not considered that the heavens and the earth were a joined entity, and we separated them and made from water every living thing? Then will they not believe?" Some Muslims like to interpret this as, the Big Bang Theory. They like to say, you see, it's talking about a singularity, and then it's separated and it's expanding, and it's like.
Well, they do that with the Bible too, about the stretching the firmament like a tent over the heavens.
Yeah, and I think now is a good time to read Avijit Roy's objections. Avijit Roy, as I mentioned earlier, was a Bangladeshi blogger who was murdered for his blogs about atheism and secularism. But he made 3 objections. His first objection was that if it was indeed the case that the Quran contained scientific facts and principles, then we wouldn't need popular science books to explain scientific facts. We would just need to print out these verses. But he points out that, that would fail because, not even the most skilled apologists would attempt that, to just get those verses out, omit God, the prophets, and all the holy references, publish those verses into science books, and then try to get those into peer review. No one would publish that.
Right.
Yeah. The second objection was that if the Quran is a book of science, which field? Physics, chemistry, biology. Of course, they don't specify that. They only answered that some scholars give is usually technological or medical science relating to embryology or astronomy or the Big Bang.
Are these his refutations to that one verse that you read?
No. These are his objections to Quranic science in general. But I'm just reading them now because I kind of got ahead of myself.
I got you.
But yeah, he's pointing out that not a single verse in the holy books contains a scientific term like atom, electron, neutron. You have to remember that when it comes to the Quran, it's the 7th century book, and modern science developed in like 500 years ago, and it kept developing from there. So there seems to be no reason to think there is science in the Quran because the two are separated by hundreds of years.
If there is, it's retrofitted.
Well, I mean, people think that there's science in the Septuagint, which became the Old Testament. I mean, some of it, it's not exactly the same, but people know what I'm talking about, maybe. So, I mean, people think there's science in that.
Yeah, and of course, his last objection, Abhijit last objection, is that if one insists that the verses of the Quran are literally the word of God, who is omnipotent and omniscient, then one is forced to conclude that Allah, as the perfect being, is an even worse science writer than humans. And if God really wanted to communicate scientific facts and principles to his mortal creations, he failed miserably.
That got me thinking, and this probably isn't the appropriate time to ask this, but I want to do it while it's fresh on my brain. In these stories, like, people are going to, and we're going to try to do the same thing, I guess, is to draw the similarities between the Bible and the Quran. When are you talking about the Jesus and Muhammad dynamic? How was it that Muhammad got out of having to be involved in the sacrifice aspect?
Oh, you mean like what do you mean? Like how is it that Muhammad isn't like a martyr? In the same
Right. Like I said, I don't know. I'm not. I know very little about the Quran,
Okay,
but is there like a similarity between, because you have these two figureheads, right? You have Jesus as the figurehead of Christianity and Muhammad as the one for Islam. Did he have to do something in that realm?
There is somewhat of a similarity in the sense that they both began religious communities, and these two religious communities were persecuted. The difference is that Jesus got crucified, and Muhammad got away and made it settle down in the city of Medina, which was called Yathrib at the time, but they changed it to Medina because it was his city, and Medina didn't city, so it's the city of the Prophet. He got into politics. He became a warlord. His story was a success story. The story of Jesus was a failure that ended up turning into a miraculous success. So the difference is that the two figures are different historically.
I don't know. Go ahead.
Obviously, they have some similarities, the two, but ostensibly they are very different characters based on two very different people from history.
Right. I don't know that that's an interesting thing that you just said, because it's ultimately up into interpretation. But I don't know that I would consider the story of Jesus the story of a failure. I think it was the story of somebody going on a mission they knew they weren't going to come back from, suicide mission, essentially.
Well, yeah, there's of course a lot of people that compete about that, but of course there's contradictions to that too. I mean, why did Jesus say the 12 of you shall be seated on thrones to be the 12 tribes of Israel when the kingdom of comes?
Oh, you're not going to get me try to defend it. I'm just saying, I think that
he tells this to the 12, including
right.
Jesus, and it's like, if he knew this was a suicide mission, why did he say the 12 of you will be seated on thrones when the kingdom of heaven comes, if he knows that he's on a suicide mission and Judas is right fucking there?
Well, V, now you're just cherry picking things that are contradictions, and I'm going to need you to. But I guess my ultimate point is, like, when you're a Christian, right, you kind of cling and hold to that sacrifice aspect. That's the reason for why you spend your life worshiping Jesus, because he gave that ultimate sacrifice, and he died on the cross, rose again for 3 days. What is in the Islam aspect of it that kind of gets them? Like, where is that? You just have a guy essentially that just says, I'm the prophet of Allah. I'm the last one. There can't be any more after me. And he just lives out in a city and passes away. Like, where's the motivation to follow this?
So the motivation to follow it is pretty simple. People were raised with it. People were told that God sent this to him. People were, of course, sold it from a very understanding perspective. When it comes to Muhammad's narrative, he is a character that people don't expect a lot from. He was an orphan. He was poor. He married an older woman who was a merchant that was far richer than him. He lost her. He lost his uncle. He lost everything he had in the year of sorrow. So he was in a lot of ways a person that was downtrodden, and then that downtrodden man ended up becoming powerful. He ended up unifying his people. He ended up creating an empire, a kingdom, an empire, and then that empire would go on to conquer the known world and spread this message. And of course, they tell you this is the message of God, and that's the appeal. They're told this is God's word. This man is the person God said is the inspiration. Here's his story.
I have more questions than answers now because I feel like there's no legitimate reason to. I mean, obviously, essentially, you've just got a guy saying this, and everybody going, "Yeah, that sounds right."
Well, that's a whole conversation for another time, I think, because we're in the middle of the creation story.
Oh, I know, but see, when my brain gets going, I have to play it out. Otherwise, I'll be up all night.
But we need to finish the creation story because remember it's Friday.
I just have one more question. Just one more question.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Where does the promise of heaven or hell come in, and what do you have to do to get there? And I promise I will not push this aspect of it. But what do you have to do to get into paradise for Islam?
So the concept of paradise, Jannah, as it's called in Arabic, you get that by being a believer. One, you have to say the Shahada, which is, there is no God but God, Muhammad is his prophet. You have to say that in Arabic. And you have to do works. You have to pray 5 times a day. You have to do the Hajj. You have to give zakat, charity. You have to follow the tenets, all this stuff. Essentially, there's a lot of debate as to what gets you into Jannah, because of course there's the fundamentalists who say you have to follow not just these 5 pillars, but also the lifestyle of the prophet. And then there are, of course, those who say, no, it's just the basics of the 5 pillars could get you in as well as believing. What gets you into hell is, of course, not believing. You could pretty much say that's the ultimate sin. Not believing and believing in other religions, like being a polytheist or an idolater. Those things get you to hell, or Jahannam as they call it, which is they describe it in detail. Yeah. So do I move on?
Oh yeah. I'm writing down the rest of my questions.
Yeah, no problem. So the Quran, the origins of the universe, they always start in Surah 21, verse 30, which is talking about the heavens and the earth being united, a joint entity, and splitting. And they like to say it's talking about the singularity. There's just 2 problems with that. The same problem that you get with chapter 1, verse 1 of Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Problem is that there was no earth in the beginning. And also, more importantly than that, there was no matter in the beginning. Physicists say that matter came just a bit later after the Big Bang. And before that, it was just energy, and then that turned into matter. So the idea that this is describing the singularity and the Big Bang is a bit ridiculous, because, of course, Earth is made of matter, and Earth came about 4 billion years ago, and the Big Bang was 13 billion years ago, and there was no matter in the beginning. So, yeah.
Well, according to George Lujack, God created the planet 4.7 billion years ago, and then stopped, counted the stars, and it took him from that period of time to 6,000 years ago when he put people on the planet. So.
Oh, okay. How does he explain all the shit we find?
So let's move on with the creation story.
Yeah, let's do that.
Now, remember how I said this was going to get sloppy?
Yeah.
So, the beginning, chapter 21, verse 30. The next part of the creation story is in Surah 41, verse 11, chapter 41, verse 11, which says, "Then he directed himself to the heaven while it was smoke, and said to it and to the earth, 'Come into being, willingly or by compulsion.' They said, 'We have come willingly.'" So after parting the heavens and the earth in chapter 21, God tells them all the way in chapter 41 to stop being smoke, and the smoke implies that it'll stop being smoke and take the form that they are now. Need I explain?
Yes. Please do.
It just doesn't make any sense. Of course, it basically says that after the heavens and the earth were one, they parted and they were smoke, and then God talked to it, and it applied, and it became what it is.
I mean, look, is it crap? Yes, but I will say that on some of these things, I took a class in college, Greek mythology, and some of the ways that they would come up with explanations for what they were seeing actually are pretty cool. And I think that if we did with religion what we did with Greek mythology was to acknowledge that this was a big thing back then. It was important back then, but now it's just really cool stories to explain your surroundings. That'd be the way to go, because they have some really cool, badass explanations for.
When it comes to the Quranic creation story, as a 7th century Arabian myth about the creation of the universe, it's interesting. Mm-hmm. But as a literal story, no.
Right? Yeah. That's where you lose me. That's where you lose me. You know, if you tell me that this is true, I can't look at it as cool. It's just
ridiculous.
Yeah, ridiculous.
But if you tell me it's a myth from 7th century Arabia, that's interesting. You know? So then, according to Surah 41, verses 9 to 12, it took 8 days. And, you know, it took 8 days, 2 days to create the earth, 4 days to make the mountains, bless the earth and measure its sustenance, and 2 days to make the heavens and the stars. And that's all explained in Surah 41, verses 9 to 12.
So Allah didn't rest.
No.
Allah prayed fucking 9 times a day.
Well, that's what Jesus took the 7th day off. Allah's like, I'm keep going. He's doing 8.
That's because Jesus is in the union.
And here's where things get a little. This is where the. Remember how I said that the Quran had some internal consistency? Emphasis on the some. Because in Surah 50, verse 38, it says, "And we did certainly create the heavens and earth, and what is between them in 6 days, and there touched us no weariness."
Who is the us and the we?
Oh, so the Quran, Allah describes himself in the plural. It's kind of as an exalting pronoun.
He's one of those. I knew it. He's like the Trump of the gods. I am Allah.
So obviously there's a contradiction here, because all the way in Surah 41, verses 9 to 12, it says it took 8 days. But in Surah 50, verse 38, it says it took 6 days. But this is where things get interesting for the Islamic creationists. The Arabic word for day in the Quran is yam, and it's often interpreted to be longer than 24 hours because, you know, in the Quran, there are 2 verses that contradict each other, but that give long time. In Surah 22, verse 47, it says, "And they urge you to hasten the punishment, but Allah will never fail in his promise. And indeed, a day with your Lord is like 1,000 years of those which you count."
It's in the Bible, too.
Yeah. Direct influence from the Bible in it too. And then all the way in Surah 70, verse 4, it says, "The angels and the spirit will ascend to him during a day, the extent of which is 50,000 years." So
just kidding.
So these 2 verses contradict each other. One says like 1,000 years, the other says like 50,000 years. But because of these contradicting verses, most Islamic creationists are actually old Earth creationists. They believe that the Earth is very old because they can reconcile that because there's some consistency there.
George Lujack. Yeah. Let me ask you this. No, I'm serious. With George, that's what he believes. He believes that he's an old Earth creationist, so he believes that the planet was formed billions of years ago, but that it's set barren up until 6,000 years ago when God decided to populate it. So when he was on, I asked him, what was God doing during that intermediate time? And he said, well, it clearly says God knows every number of stars that are in the galaxy. So
he was counting stars.
Right, he was counting stars. But with the 8 days and the 6 days thing, why do you think that it is that they couldn't just catch that when they're writing these scrolls or tablets? Why let something like that go through?
It's really hard to tell because, again, Islam's foundings are really hard to pin down. According to tradition, the Quran was compiled from basically scraps that people wrote down, a piece of leather, a piece of wood, that someone wrote down Muhammad's saying, and they wrote it down and kept them with them. And then
anthology.
one of his caliphs, his succeeding caliph, if I'm not correct, it was Umar or Uthman, one of the two. One of his caliphs decided he needed to compile these, so he sent out emissaries to compile all these scraps, put them together, put all of Muhammad's recitations together, and then he got the Quran, burned all the originals, and yeah.
So that's what this is just an anthology of mad ranting.
Yeah, an anthology of most likely.
Great.
They say that it's an anthology of recitations that Muhammad received from God, but I think your interpretation is more likely.
Doesn't not piss anybody else off that that's what dictates so much of our aspect in life and society, that literally it could be just a crazy man back in the day that seemed like he had good ideas and would write everything like on napkins people do now and just kept them, and then through the years it became a law book on how people should be put to death for the things that they do. And that's outrageous.
Yeah,
That's
and
crazy,
of course,
right?
and of course, what we can tell is like in a lot of ways, there's a lot of parallels between Muhammad and Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith was obviously getting a lot of his stuff from the King James Bible, and based on what we have in the Quran, it looks like Muhammad was getting a lot of his stuff from Jewish Christians, or Jews and Christians at the same time.
I'm gonna get on my rant here in just a second.
Let's
we don't have time for.
Let's move on to the Quranic origin of species, which is unfortunately Abrahamic, because we'll find a familiar character in the Quran, and his name is, of course, Adam. And he's considered the first human as well as the first prophet in Islam. Adam is a prophet in Islam because there's a chain of prophets. Adam, then Ibrahim, then so on and so on. But when it comes to Adam, his story is just the funniest bundle of contradictions. Let's begin with Surah 25, verse 54. And it is he who created from water human being and made him a relative by lineage and marriage. Ever is your Lord competent concerning creation. So he's made from water, but then again in Surah 96, verses 1 and 2, it says, recite in the name of your Lord created man from a clinging substance. Now, this clinging substance is interpreted as congealed blood. The question is, from where? So, is it water? Is it blood? Then, all the way in Surah 32, verse 7, it says, who perfected everything which he created and began the creation of man from clay? So, clay. And then in Surah 3, verse 59, it says, indeed, the example of Jesus to Allah is like that of Adam. He created him from dust and then said to him, be, and he was.
So basically what we're getting at is there are just as many contradictions in the Quran and the stories of Islam as there are in Judaism and Christianity and probably most other religions like this. Yeah.
Water, congealed blood, clay, dust, these are blatant contradictions. They all...
Yummy.
And of course, obviously the thing about these contradictions is the fact that they... we have evolution. So these stories aren't true. Now, the story of Adam is, if I'm correct, it begins in Jannah, in heaven. The garden is in heaven. There's actually debate between whether or not it was a heavenly garden on earth or heaven itself in Jannah. And so what happened was Adam, God told all the angels to bow to Adam. And then Shaitan, Iblis as he was called at the time, but Shaitan, Satan, essentially, said, I will not bow to him. And he said, why? Because he's made from clay and I'm made from fire, which is to say that he's not an angel, he's a jinn. And jinn, that's a very interesting thing in the Quran, is that it says that God created three races of beings. He created humanity, he created angels, and he also created jinn from smokeless fire. And the jinn is where we get the genies.
We are before you get too deep into that, I'm just realizing what time it is. KC and GE have their stream at 9:30 and it's almost 15 after 9 already. I mean, that was like the quickest hour and 15.
I know, right? It's a really interesting topic. Maybe we should have him come back.
That's what I was getting ready to say. if we can bring you back next week.
So yeah,
and
let me
wrap up.
just, if I can, just real fast. This was a cover of the Quranic creation story.
Right.
It's just and it's only summed up in a few verses that contradict each other. That the heavens and the earth were joined; they were parted into smoke. God spoke them into creation, and then, depending on which verse you're reading, 6 days or 8 days, He created them into. He created them essentially, and then Islamic creationists interpret that as meaning old Earth. But then, when it comes to the origin of species, they, of course, are Abrahamic through and through. They believe in Adam and Eve, or in Arabic, Adam and Hawa. And, of course, when it comes to Adam, that's just the other obvious string of contradictions. Dust, congealed blood, water, clay. This is the Islamic creation story.
Well, I think that was an amazing introduction to it, but I do want to get back, come back and go deeper into it, because I want to ask you my questions at some point too, and get your opinions on those. But I mean, I seriously, Casey, I didn't realize it was already been an hour and 15 minutes. But
yeah. If you want to have me back, we could talk about Quranic science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
they just got to run, because they do their weekly stream at 9:30, so they got set up.
Yeah, so and in case anybody is interested, the stream tonight that we're doing is, I don't know what the video is tonight. Are we doing Flat Earth Friday? We're doing Flat Earth Friday, so it's a Flat Earth thing. And this is on the Godless Engineer channel. All of the super chats tonight are going toward a peanut butter drive. And what that is, here in Northern Alabama, we are collecting peanut butter to send to orphanages in Haiti. And peanut butter in Haiti costs between $9 and $9.50 a jar, and minimum wage in Haiti is $5 a day. So it's a really good source of protein. It's a pretty staple food. It goes pretty far, but it's just not affordable. So we already, just from private donations I've gotten from people I know in real life, have 20 40-ounce jars of peanut butter sitting on the kitchen table. So if you want to come over to the Godless Engineer stream, it starts in about 15 minutes, and do a super chat and donate. It's $3.50. We'll buy a 40-ounce jar of peanut butter. So
I thought you were getting ready to invite us over to have PB&Js with the Team Godless Engineer, but they didn't.
You can come over and have PB&Js with us anytime.
Yeah, so if I can, I actually wanted to end on some good news. Let me see how much time before you start. I just want to make sure that we give them enough time to set up. Casey, how much?
Yeah, I pretty much need to go, because John's got to get stuff set up. So I can't.
Go ahead. We'll go ahead and Casey. We'll go ahead and close. I'll let him. You go ahead and go. I'll let him wrap up his point and then close out.
Okay.
He can.
Okay. So
hold on. Bye, Casey. We'll see you over at the stream here in just a few minutes.
Yeah. Bye, guys. Thank you, V. It was good to talk to you. It was super interesting, and I'm really sorry we didn't have more time.
That's all right.
Absolutely.
I also don't know how to end this call. John?
We'll kick you out. We'll kick you out.
Okay, kick me out. Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Love y'all. Bye.
You as well. I think I can kick you out.
Oh, can you leave meeting? Oh, there it is. I found it.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that, V. We were trying not to overlap those two things, and time got away from me big time. But I mean, that's a good thing, because
yeah, and I understand, because you have a lot of questions. This is something that we're very ignorant about in our part of the world. You know?
Well, now I don't know about ignorant.
Well, you're not ignorant. Actually, you're very well informed.
I'm kidding. I'm very ignorant.
No, you have very good questions, and they deserve answers. And I'm willing to step aside from the creation story to answer them.
But and we'll do that. We'll probably shoot for something. I'll check and see what, because I believe there's a guy that got in contact with me. We're supposed to have, I believe, on Friday, and or that's next Monday.
Yeah. The audience is clamoring for a second show of you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we will definitely do that. We'll shoot it for at the end of next week or the beginning of the next, and that way I'll do it in the earlier, beginning of the week, so that there's nothing that'll tail end on it, and we can go as long as we need to. But I'll let you go ahead and wrap up your point and say what you wanted to say there, and then I can get my questions together and send those to you as well, and you'll kind of know where I'm going, and we can have a deeper kind of conversation that way next time you're on.
Definitely. But yeah, the point I was going to wrap up on was, I hope this was a good introduction to the Islamic creation story. I hope that it gets you guys to look up the Quran, look up Islamic mythology. There's actually more to it than just the Quran. But that aside, there's also a lot more with Quranic scientific claims, which I would want to go to if we ever get to discuss this again. But when it comes to Islamic creationism, I think that is a battle that we can win, because I wanted to end with some good news. Adnan Oktar, the Muslim Ken Ham, has been arrested by Turkish police for charges ranging from criminal organization, tax offenses, sexual abuse, and a litany of other charges and suspicions.
I don't know that was coming, but
Yeah,
I kept waiting for the sexual word. Kept waiting.
And the Turkish media said that 166 of his followers were arrested, and a total of 235 are being sought. This is imagine if Ken Ham had that kind of record, but this is what we're dealing with when it comes to the spokespeople of Islamic creationism. So when it comes to combating Islamic creationism, we have the facts on our side, and we can win, because even though we are outgunned by people like Adnan Oktar, who have a lot of money to back us up, the way they behave with it, the way they lie, gets them in places like this. And so, eventually the truth will win out, in my opinion.
I couldn't agree more. I just fear that in those, I try not to get too optimistic in that case, because it's a lot like, I think, with the Catholic Church, and when they have, big busts for the, kind of relationships that the priests have with kids, or you go to even the evangelicals, how many times do you hear of an evangelical that's having an affair or anything like this? It just breeds more. There's just always one to come into their place and pick up, and run with it. So to me, that's the problem with religion. It's not that you can't get these people to justice, because you can. The problem is, once you cut that arm or leg off, another one grows right where that one was.
The hydrant. You cut off the head of the hydrant.
Right. Exactly. And it doesn't slow the machine down.
But I think when I look at the long road ahead against pseudoscientific claims made by any religion, and including Islam, which is the fastest growing religion, which is something that we're going to be talking about in the decades to come. And I think for now, we're going to be dealing extensively with Christianity, but in the decades to come, the conversation will be Islam. And I think based on these few verses being their creation story, how this is stuff based on things we've already debunked with Christians and Jews, based on the fact that, the spokespeople for this are this shady, I think that there is hope up ahead. And it's all a matter of putting the facts and the evidence over the faith of these people have, these fundamentalists.
Everybody knows that atheism is the fastest growing religion in the world now. And next to that is scientism. Scientism and atheism are the two dominant world religions that we have. So just accept it.
And here's the good thing. We're growing because of converts, and they're growing because they have to keep breeding.
Right. Yeah. That's the
so we're changing minds, is what I'm saying.
I think so. With the and I know we got to close out so that we don't step on Casey and Godless Engineer, but I want to thank you for coming in. Sorry about the scramble to close out, but I literally didn't feel like it was an hour and a half. Sometimes you do these shows and you feel every minute of being on stream, but seems like when you do these type of discussions back and forth, time flies. So that got out from under me really quickly. So I apologize for having to cut you off there at the end, but we will definitely get you back and dive in deeper.
Yeah, I'm sorry I had to run off, by the way, too. But yeah, this has been.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Definitely, I want to help as much as I can.
Go ahead and let everybody know where they can find your channel, and it will be linked in the description as well. And I don't know if you want to send me the links to some of the stuff that you were talking about later on. I'll also link those so that people can check.
Yeah, I'll send you all the links, and also you could find my channel on YouTube. It's called Theomacy, TheoMachy, and I've got videos.
The link
I'm
for
currently
that.
doing responses.
The link for your channel is in the description.
Yeah, I'm doing responses to the 1 Minute Apologist at the moment. I'm going to do more responses to other people. I can do more abstract things. And more importantly, subscribe to the Non-Sequitur Show channel.
No, don't.
Do it.
We tell them not to because it's I feel like we could get sued for libel or some kind of damages later on down the road. You know. But thank you very much to V for coming on. He will be back soon. I will try to put him in on the next available date that we have so that we can get this what's fresh on everybody's mind and pick up where we left off. But for Steve and Dave and Casey and V and everybody else who makes this show what it is, thank you. And we will see you back here on Monday at 8 p.m. with Dr. Misha Griffith.
Non sequitur, your facts are uncoordinated.